Hi, it's Elaine with MCPS Technology. Today we're diving into Google Forms, a tool I know you're going to love. So we're going to our Google Drive. I always like to start there, although there are certainly other places that you can start your form. We're going to the big New button. We're going to click on More and then Google Forms. Right away, an untitled form will come up, and you know what to do to title it. You click in the upper left corner, and it might take just a second with my slow internet connection. There we go. I'm just going to call this test one. Now, this isn't really a test, but we're testing our form's ability in a way. So, okay, we'll call it test one. Now, in this tutorial, we're mainly going to focus on the questions inside forms. Notice when you're in the edit mode, there are two main areas. We have questions and we have responses. We're going to devote, well, Google Forms is not difficult, but it's intricate. And because it has lots of pieces and parts, we're going to devote more than one tutorial to this form. So before we get started writing questions, let's just check out all the things that we may need to know that we might need to decide before we really get started. And let's just very quickly look at this area over here with the three dots. So three dots in Google always means more, right? And I just want you to see all the things that are available to you here. So typically, we don't share forms in the traditional way because we're not usually asking folks to help us write the form. We're asking them to fill out the form. However, it's not unheard of for you to ask someone to collaborate with you. So that is an option, and this is the place where you would do that. There's some other things you can do here, like make a copy and that sort of thing. So you can check that out for yourself. And now let's go to settings. There's some important decisions we need to make before we even write question one. When you go to settings, you'll notice there's three areas: general, presentation, and quizzes. Quizzes we're saving for its own tutorial because that's where you would go if you wanted to create a form like a quiz that would grade itself. So we're going to learn about that in a later tutorial. So let's look under general. First of all, I can collect email addresses, and this is really a good idea. Certainly if you're building a quiz or something that's like an assignment for your students, because otherwise you won't know who turned in what. Now, I may not want to collect email addresses if I'm sending out some kind of random survey that should be anonymous. So just keep that in mind. I can also restrict this to my domain, and as you can see, that is checked by default. Now, some cases I might want to uncheck that. For example, if I were doing a survey for parents or people who are not in my domain. So again, these are decisions to be made based on what kind of form that you're building. So there's also some other decisions you can make, and you can read those for yourself. Going on to presentation, I can also show a progress bar. If I have a really long form, you've probably filled some of those out when you're thinking, is this ever going to be over? And at least the progress bar shows you the progress you've made. You can also shuffle your question order. You can show a link to submit another response, which I typically don't do. One place where you can personalize your form is in the confirmation message, and that's what the respondent sees after he clicks submit. So I might write something like thanks, or um, you rock, or just whatever. And again, it depends on what kind of form you're making. And so then once I have made those decisions, I can just click save. The main thing that folks always want to know is, how do I make my form look cool? So as you notice, your form comes in with a default color, but if you'd like to change that, you can simply click on the color palette icon and it will bring up some other options. So you could change the color to something else. And one of my favorite things to do is to click on this choose image button, and it brings up all sorts of different pictures that you can place into your form. One of my favorites is to look at the illustrations. Depending on what kind of form you're building, if it's a serious form, the illustrations probably wouldn't be the way to go, but there's just tons of things that you can choose. And like it's near Halloween right now, so I might just choose this cool ghost theme if I'm sending out a survey of some kind, just to make it fun. So you can be serious or you can be fun. And that's how you make your form look cool. Going back into the form itself, let's look at questions. So by default, a multiple choice question comes in, but what if I don't want a multiple choice question? I can simply click this little down arrow here and I can choose other types. Let's say I want a short answer question, which of course is the kind of question I might choose if I just needed a really brief answer. So I simply click into the question area and type my question. For example, what is your favorite color? And then the respondents would just have a small area to answer that question. Over here, I'd like to point out just briefly all the things that you can add in addition to questions. So if I want to add a question, I can simply click on this plus sign, and we're going to do that in just a moment. But notice I can also add titles and descriptions. I can bring in images, which can really help personalize the form. I can bring in videos. And I can add sections, like if my form is going to be really long, I might want to divide it up into sections. Let's go back and add another question. Again, it comes in as multiple choice, but multiple choice is really so easy. I'd really like to spend time in this video showing you a couple of question types that are a little tricky or a little more difficult to understand. So let's choose linear scale. This one is really useful, and I just want to make sure that you understand how to set it up. So a linear scale is where you might have something that is like a range of response, right? So I might say, rate your job satisfaction. And notice that by default, it comes from 1 to 5, but it can go up to 10. So I'm just going to leave it at 5. And the labels would be what go at each end of the scale. So 1 I might be rating my job satisfaction as low, and the 5 would be high. So if I want to see what that looks like in, to the end user, I can go up to this preview button and simply click on it. And notice how neat this question looks. So I can click anywhere on this linear scale and I can rate my job satisfaction. Once I've seen what that looks like in preview mode, I can simply click on this pencil and that will take me back to the edit mode of my form. And I can keep working on it. So one of the other question types that I'd like to show you is called multiple choice grid. So this one's a little complicated to set up, but a really awesome question type. So as I'm setting this up, let me just point out to you that you can move any question. So notice my new question comes in at the top. It's really wherever I'm clicked on, but I can move it wherever I like by simply hovering over it until I see these crosshairs, and then I can just pull it wherever I want it. So a multiple choice grid would be used traditionally with the type of question that we might call like a Likert scale, where I'd be using words like agree, disagree, strongly disagree, that kind of thing. So I might just start out by saying, please respond to the following statements. And I'll just take a second to type that. And so the rows are where the statements go that I'm say something I want people to respond to. How about Google rocks? I mean, who's gonna disagree with that, right? I might also say teachers should, uh, should be paid more. Who in the world is gonna disagree with that? Now the columns are the words that go across the top, the things that I get to choose regarding the statements. So I might start out with strongly agree, and I might add agree, then disagree, and then strongly disagree. And again, if I want to see what that's going to look like to the end user, I can simply go up to preview and there it is. So there's my statements. Here's where I can agree or disagree. Pretty cool, huh? So once I have my form the way I want it and I've added all the questions that I want, then oh yeah, here it's taking me back into edit mode. Come on. There we go. All right. So if I'm ready to send my form, I've looked at it in preview mode. I'm thinking, hey, this form looks pretty good. I'm ready to send. So I'm going to go up to the send button and click it. Now, forms are a little different from other types of Google Docs when you send them. So a lot of times with other Google Docs, you're clicking the share button. Here, we're not sharing in the traditional sense because we want the respondents to fill out the form, right? So notice our options here. We can send it via email, which is by far the easiest. And, if I have a Google group or something, or I'm just sending this to a couple of people, then I could simply type their email addresses here. I can put a message here. And I really would advise you not to check this box to include the form in the email because they won't see your cool theme if you do that. So it's better not to check that box. Typically, though, I use the link option. So if you click on the link icon and you can click this little box to shorten your very long link, then you can simply copy the link and I can just then go to my email and write an email and paste that link in. I find that to be the best way to send my form so that I'll have it in my sent file and I can send it to as many people as I want. And also notice that you can send this form via some different social outlets as well. And if you work with HTML coding, you can also embed the form. So those are the basics of building a Google form. And I'm sending you off now to try it for yourself. I know you're going to have a great time doing it.